Now I want to talk about how to call methods from a subclass. So let's say, for example, that we have the, the dot equals method. So let's override the dot equals method. So we can just get it like this. And now, how do we compare two employee instances for equality? Well, this is very simple. All we have to do is just say if object is not an instance of employee, then return false. Otherwise, we'll say employee other employee equals, we'll cast this to be an employee, and then we'll just say return this dot name dot equals other employee dot name, and this dot age equals other employee dot age. Okay, so this is nothing simple. This is nothing new. This is very simple. Okay, but if we're trying to compare hourly employees, is it really necessary to just copy all of this and then add a third field? Of course not. I mean, we can just call, or rather, what we're going to do, it's not that this is obvious, what we're going to do is we're going to define the dot equals method inside of the subclass, and notice that we're actually already overriding the dot equals method from object, because object, as you should be familiar by now, has different methods that we can use, but the three main ones are dot equals, dot hashcode, and dot toString. Those we've been overriding for a while now. So what we're doing is we're saying that we want to change the implementation of, or rather we want to say that in this subclass, we're using a new implementation of this method. Okay? We're overriding the functionality of it from the superclass. Okay? So, let's do that here. Let's say public boolean equals. So, what we're saying is that in the hourly employee class, we're going to override how we compare employees by telling how we compare hourly employees. Okay? So, we'll first say that, if it's not an instance of hourly employee, then we just return false. Okay? There's no way to proceed from there. Then what we can do is say return, or rather, first we need to cast it, sorry. So we'll just cast it as so. And then we'll say return this dot get hourly rate is equal to other employee dot hourly rate. And then you might think, okay, well then we can just do this dot get name dot equals other employee dot get name, and the same thing for the age. But we can do this in a much simpler way. All we have to do is say super dot equals and pass it other employee. What this will do is it will call the method from the superclass and pass to it other employee. Okay? So if we say that the two employees make the same hourly rate, then we'll check to see whether they have the same name and the same age. Now, you may be thinking, well, what about this check? Wouldn't that just fail? Well, no, because remember, in the last video, we said that, if we have a class B extends a class A, then B is an A. Okay? This also means that B is an instance of A. Okay? So, this check would be just fine if we passed anything that is a subclass or is an employee in and of itself. Okay? So just to see this in action, we'll create some examples here, or we'll just create employee E3 equals new hourly employee. We'll say Gilmore 26, 1350, and then we'll just output whether let's compare like that. So well, actually, let's do this, and then we'll undo what I did, and we'll show you how that works. Okay, so we'll say he.equals E3. So this should return, or this should print true, because they have the same name, the same age, and the same hourly rate. Okay? Now let's do this. What happens if we have a class declared as an employee, and instantiated as an hourly employee versus just having a class outright declared and instantiated as an hourly employee. Well, as you see, this is going to still print true. And the reason why is because remember the notion of polymorphic behavior from interfaces? That's exactly what's going on here. So, employee is going to, or the E3 is going to be instantiated as an hourly employee. But we see that we have overridden the implementation of dot equals. So, if we call, so actually let's flip this around to make it more clear of what's going on here. Yeah. So what this means is that because we've instantiated E3 as an hourly employee, it's going to use any implementation of methods that are inside of the employee class as they're defined in the hourly employee class. So what do I mean by that? I mean that because there's a dot equals implementation in the employee class, because the class because the class overrides the dot equals method, it will use that implementation of dot equals as opposed to the one from the superclass. Okay? So that's really important to understand. And what's more important to understand, as I sort of illustrated in the last video, is that we cannot do, if we declare the class as an employee and instantiate it as an hourly employee, we cannot get access to the methods that are defined only in the subclass without a cast. Okay? But again, we can get around that by doing a cast, or we can just declare it as the subclass type. Now, you may be wondering, well, why would I not ever just do this? Like, why would I not just declare it as an hourly employee versus an employee? Well, in general, you want to try and refrain from making as many new changes as possible in subclasses, but sometimes it's inevitable, like in this case. You know, we want to say that an hourly employee has some property, i.e. have an hourly rate, that must be distinct from the employee instance. So in this case, I would say it's fine to just declare it and instantiate it as the subclass type. And as you'll see in section 4.5, there's a way to sort of avoid this this problem of choosing which one to instantiate the type as.